This is The Real Gig with Bret Alexander.
Dustin Douglas, we're back.
Yes.
Back, episode...
Part two.
Part two of our... Two is not a trilogy. This is just a duo.
We could do a lot more than a trilogy.
We could do a lot more. We could do a trilogy. But we're just doing 2 episodes of us bullshitting and talking. And... yeah, man, we got a long history, and I want to talk. We talked a lot about the business and you and how you got yourself going, and you know the history of all that.
Yes.
And I want to talk about a little bit of the specifics of like the musical side.
Cool.
You know of so like the thing I noticed, you know, like I said, like I always thought back in the day when I first met you, I'm gonna tell a story about first meeting you.
Yes.
Right?
I'm excited.
You're excited to hear that?
Yes, I am.
I think our listeners will be excited.
All right.
So, like, I first met you through Gene Padden.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, Buddy Gene. Yeah.
Buddy Gene, and Gene's a drummer.
Yes.
And Gene went in the Navy?
Yeah. Now I think he's in California now. I think he started drumming again. He's in a band.
Really?
I just saw. Yeah.
Is he still in the Navy, or does he get out?
I'm
Or is
not
he
sure.
done?
I'm not sure. I don't know if he's active or the specific.
But he went in the Navy at one point, but
Yep.
this was before Gene was writing for the newspaper.
Yes. And I was interning. It was Electric City, Diamond
Electric City.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. I got a couple brain
Yeah,
cells left.
between the two of us, we might have one.
Yeah, and Gene said, you know, you should meet Dustin. We went down. I met you at the River Street Jazz Cafe.
Awesome.
Am I right?
I don't remember. This is amazing. I forgot.
That makes me feel like shit. You don't remember. I remember this. You know what? That's lame.
My apologies. Although my brain cells have been damaged over many years.
You know what? Like, okay, so the next part of the story is going to support what you.
All right.
You just said. So like Gene said, well, would you like to meet Dustin? I think he'd be a good hookup for you. You guys would get along.
Awesome.
So you're maybe 21, somewhere around there. I think you're still in school.
Okay.
At this point.
Yeah.
So we went down and it was kind of like, and I gave my whole spiel about recording, and like it's very, very similar to what we're talking about 20 years later.
Cool.
Here.
Cool.
Or it was more than 20 years ago. So, not 20 years ago. Well, anyway, whatever. Approximately 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I gave it, and we were talking about doing some recording, doing our thing. And the thing I remember is like we talked about, you know, getting together and like maybe doing some pre-pro or something like that. And I remember you and I got to the end of the conversation and I said, well, how's that sound to you? You know what I mean? And like, how does that sound? Does that sound good? You know, you want to do that? And you're like 20, 21. You're like, yeah, man, you know, if I don't have anything else going on. I'm like, screw you, you little friggin' punk.
That sounds like 21-year-old me.
I'm like, screw you, you little punk. Who do you think you are? This tour bus come by, pick your ass up? You know, you don't have time?
What's even more fucked up,
you know,
I don't remember any of this.
I remember this very well. Yeah, man, if I have time.
No shit.
Yeah.
How times have changed. That's terrible. Well, I apologize, and I had nothing else going on. But I gotta say, my music industry defense was already ready to go, dude.
You had it. But anyway, I remember that, and I was like,
oh,
who the hell is it? Who is this guy?
Awesome.
Punk.
Probably fueled by Jägermeister.
You know, it might have been. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I thank Gene for introducing us. And then we got together and we did like some pre-pro and work with like Lemon Jelly.
Yeah.
That was your first band?
We hit the tail end of the original Saturation Acres.
Yeah,
we hit the tail end of that.
Just leaving.
And then, you guys were leaving, and then we did like some sessions. Like we had that crazy rehearsal space where we shared with Panacea. You guys got caught in the elevator.
We got stuck in the elevator. That was like a scary ass place.
Oh, me and Paulie talk about it often.
Really?
It was. You were just pissing the corner of that place. Like it was like
oh man, that's disgusting. Okay. There was like a friggin' tote, right?
Yeah, dude.
Was there?
Yes.
Was there not?
Yes, there was.
Do
It was
I remember
gross.
that?
It was gross.
It was disgusting.
It was disgusting. And we would both rehearse.
And you guys would
Panacea
be-
was on one side of the hall and Lemon Jelly was on the other. And Gene
I'd be-
Patton got us that place, ironically.
And I was like pre-proing both of you on different nights.
Yes.
So then you'd both be like, texting back and forth that like, that song sounds like something.
Oh yeah, they would shoot fireworks over the top of the, and then and then we retaliated by covering because there was a bunch of junk laying all over the place. We blocked them into their room. They couldn't get out of the room. Those days were great. Those days were great.
That place was like the biggest shithole I've ever seen.
It was
like
freezing in the winter.
Freezing in the winter.
We had like
You're-
heaters, and then they would trip the breakers.
and you're pissing in a tote.
And we would piss in a tote. Yeah. No bathrooms. No working bathrooms.
This is not podcast material. I wanted to talk about something very, very pertinent. But anyway, here we go.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll. That was it. That was it. But that was like, Lemon Jelly, Panacea.
Yeah.
Who the whole Panacea story needs to be told
Yes.
here, but it has not yet. But it will be.
Awesome.
But there was like Lemon Jelly, Panacea, kind of rehearsing together, kind of going back and forth, blocking each other, shooting fireworks over the walls. Like
Yes.
they just like kind of constructed little drywall walls,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It was just like they just made like a little makeshift wall between the two rooms.
And we'd be rehearsing at maximum volume, as you do when you're
As
in
they
your
did,
20s.
too.
Yeah. And I just remember like a bottle rocket. Like I was singing some mic and I just remember seeing it like slow motion.
Didn't like Polly was like some sort of like shock and something.
I don't know about that, but I do know that I would borrow his amps and I blew at least 2 of them up.
There's one,
remember that.
Like he was like there was like something was wrong with his amp and he's over there and he's by himself and he's like upstairs in his friggin' this place in Wilkes-Barre and he can't.
And he would carry those diesels up like the steps and
but
stuff. And
there was there was like a yellow one. Wasn't there like one that was like yellow?
The Spawn. I blew that one up. I blew that up.
That was probably a good thing for him because that almost killed him.
See, I was helping him out.
Yeah, you did because that was the one, and he said he was like over there working on it. And like he's like
Some things never change.
But there was like nobody would have found him for a week.
No, God no.
Nobody would have found him for a week.
Oh, those were some fun days.
Yeah, that was good stuff. Failed to mention your tenure in the Badleys, which is a friggin' crime. And but the thing I really remember about you when you started like with you and Nike,
Yes.
and the other 4 guys, and I remember the thing I remember when you first started learning the Badleys the Badleys songs, the material, was like how much you played it like it was originally. Like it wasn't a hard fit.
Right.
Like in the Badleys too, and like you got a lot of like stuff that's not real gained up,
Right.
Telecasters.
Right.
There's certain voicings in those songs, and tube screamers and Fender amps.
Yes.
And all that kind of stuff. And like you like intuitively like landed on that stuff very well, which is a big compliment because it's like not that it's hard, but not everybody can do that.
Right.
So that was the first thing that struck me. Like when I always said, hey, I really saw like you were like a friggin' sound like a side guy, like a Jimmy Page side guy's not a good. That sounds almost, but basically the Jimmy Page, Joe Perry
Right.
/ guy.
Right.
Like you're really good at that.
Well, thank you.
And I mean that.
With that being said, I almost, when I get to be that guy, it's nice. It feels nice to just be the guitar player, because I wear a lot of hats in the Electric Gentleman. For a long time, we were just a power trio,
Sure.
and, still basically are, even with an additional guitar player vocalist. But like, it's funny, I'll come home from like a gig of just a guitar player and I'll say to Amber, I'm like, people get paid to just play guitar. Like, this is great. The thing for me is like, I take, and I'm not one to, I have to give credit to my ear because that's all I have. So, I remember the first time that I realized that like I can do something like that. I would play these Monday nights at the Ale House.
Oh, I was there.
Yeah, with like AJ and
Aaron
Brook and Chad Saliga was either
not Chad, but Chad had a tenure.
Right, he was filling in on drums, or he played a song or something, and I don't know. I had a telly that night, and he came up to me and he said, "It's really strange how you." I remember him saying this. I forget the exact words, but he's like, no matter what song you're playing, because we would just do covers, we'd have a good time. Like we would do Tool, and then we would do Radiohead or something. He was like, and I would have a small pedal, but he's like, you have the tone of the song with the same rig. He's like, I don't understand how that's. I mean, I do love tone, and I think that's not necessarily everyone's on their tone quest, but I think it's all here and here.
It's in your hands.
It's all here and here, but it's also touch. It's touch, and
but at the same time, like I've said in other podcasts, like when you're like you're in a studio and you're working with like an AJ or Jeremy or like these other guys that are in my stable that everybody listening maybe doesn't know, but you should. But
absolutely.
But or there's just like there's a certain amount of like, if you're going to do these things, there's a certain amount of vocabulary that you have to have.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you take somebody like Aaron and Jeremy who played with Breaking Benjamin,
right?
But they could just as easily play with the Almond Brothers.
Right.
Very
because
much they understand it.
Right.
And they understand, so you could like take them and move them over here, and they would be perfectly at home.
Absolutely.
As well as you. And like that's what you need. You know what I mean? And in your case, like we were really, like you say, like playing those Monday nights at the Ale House, which I came over and played.
Yeah,
sometimes.
we would do like a different front guy every week. And those are the things that I feel make those kind of things. If you're a younger player and you could get yourself in situations like that, that's what makes you a better player. Mm-hmm. Or like I was just, talking off camera, like, I never thought in a million years I'd play as many solo acoustic gigs as I did.
Sure.
But that made me a better singer.
Sure.
That made me a better player. I don't like to just play acoustic guitar and sing a song. I'm trying to make a complete orchestra. I'm trying to play rhythm and lead at the same time, make it full as possible. Like, I feel like that's like, but then again, it's nice to when there is a 2 guitar attack. And I feel like when you and me play together, our lanes are totally defined, and we never step on each other.
Sure.
And it's like a Keith and Ronnie thing, that's a really special thing when it comes to 2 guitar players, and it's not something you can practice, and it's not something that you can't put 2 guitar players in a room and it's going to happen automatically.
It's going to happen every time.
Not. It doesn't happen. It's almost more important if what you're not playing than what you are playing.
Right. On that friggin' note,
yes,
the Faces, underrated. Insane.
One of my favorite bands of all time.
Really?
I mean, you know that.
Yeah.
But
underrated.
Yeah, I mean, it's that era of Rod Stewart is
so good.
Vocally, the Steve Marriott, the more contemporary Chris Robinson, like that style vocal is what I try to achieve.
That's your favorite.
Yeah, I mean that's soulful rock. I mean, it's just great. I mean, there's newer bands like Rival Sons and Dirty Honey that do that kind of thing where it's just like that's rock and roll for me.
Sure.
That's really the Faces of the
that's good stuff.
That's the shit right there.
Funny story. I'll back up. Monday nights at the Ale House, I'll tell an Alexander family story.
Awesome.
Right? So we're playing there one Monday night, and AJ or you or whoever had in this band called Filthy Still. I don't know if you were there.
I don't know if I remember this.
Filthy Still.
That doesn't
They were
mean I
like
wasn't
kind of
there.
like this sort of psychobilly band.
Okay.
And the guy had a homemade upright bass, right? So he had a homemade upright bass. The strings were weed whacker string, right?
I might have been there.
Were you there?
I think
because they were orange.
I think I was there.
It was like this orange weed whacker string.
Yes.
And like Filthy Still. And they had like this lead singer that was named Hickory. His name was just Hickory. Hickory, you know? And like Hickory, Filthy Still and Hickory like opened up the gig and then we played.
Right.
So then like we're all over there. I mean, like I swear you were there with Amber.
I probably was.
Because Kelly, my wife
Right.
Kelly was there. Kelly, we were both there. And I just remember Hickory and Filthy Still got done with their set and then we played or whatever. And we got done and I can't find the missus, you know, I can't find her. And the Hickory, the friggin' Filthy Still guys are big dudes, you know. They're
Right.
like 6'4".
Yes.
You know, and they're like big friggin' Southern friggin' Kentucky. I don't know. They were Southern guys.
Right.
So I can't find them. I can't find her. And then I like go over to like this circle of like, and she's in the middle of them, you know, like talking to them and like, you know, like bullshit. So then like we had a bakery open at the time.
Right.
So it's like she invites them back to stay because they don't have anywhere to go. You know, Filthy Still has nowhere to go. So Kelly's like, well, you can come back and stay in the bakery, you know. You know. So we had the bakery, you know, then like Hickory, and you know, we got Hickory, you know. Miss Kelly, I never stayed in the bakery before. You know, it's like, and we got all these like freaking psychobilly musicians laying on the ground.
Overalls just laying on the floor.
Overalls laying on the ground. You know, and then then it's like, you know, like my kids are there, you know,
Right.
because the bakery was attached to our house.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And the kids are coming out to use the microwave in the morning and they're like, who the hell are these people? You know? You know,
Those are the times that you
this is the life of
You would trade them for the world.
No, oh my God, you know.
It's like the best.
Yeah, and it was like, you know, and they were harmless. They were wonderful guys, but like, you know, Filthy Still with the
Traveling
weed whacker
musicians,
string,
yeah.
weed whacker string bass, and like Hickory, the front man. You know, we're like staying in our bakery, and and they're like opening cans of baked beans and putting them in our.
You just can't make it up.
You know, you can't make a shit.
I
up.
forgot. Yeah, we did. We would bring in openers towards the end of the tenure
like
there.
National guys, like
yeah,
guys
that
like
were
they're out
rolling
there on the
through.
road.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember, here we go. I remember there was one opener. He was a solo acoustic guy, and he had asked me if I wanted to partake in smoking a joint with him, right? And I said, sure. At the time, I was, you know,
Sure.
yeah, yeah. So we went downstairs, and he pulls out the tiniest, right? The tiniest little thing that I've ever seen. And I was like, you know, I did not want to be rude. So I take this and I hit it and I swallowed it. It shot down. I went, and I remember he was so,
That's not a very good guess.
the look of disappointment on this man's face. Cause that was like, you know, traveling, that's probably all he had left. And I was like, sorry, man. Meanwhile, I have this like rocket of an asteroid in my throat. Yeah, that was the Ale House Mondays. Great times.
Yeah, it was.
But again,
wasn't there another like I saw like there was the joint episode where it was like you're like outside. It was like Snoop Dogg had played Susquehanna. There's like, I mean, that's like, you know, I mean that's culturally.
I mean, that's amazing.
Insane.
That's amazing.
You know, Snoop Dogg had left behind a roach.
I think myself and possibly one of your bandmates, Paul, we got done at the gig at the Front Street Station.
Yeah.
And we had taken this, and I got in the car and drove home, and I was in a spaceship driving home. I remember. It was awesome. I just remember being like, whoa. I was like, yeah, I forgot about that, naturally.
I remember seeing you guys outside.
Yeah, naturally. Oh, the stories we could tell.
Like, so good. But you know what? That has nothing to do with what I want.
Of course not. Welcome to hanging out with me and Bret. It is ADD at its finest.
That's what this is about. But anyway, back to what I started with, what I was saying about the Badleys.
Yes.
And you started playing with us, and I was like really amazed, like, okay, you know, like the voicings, the tone,
Yeah.
You know, across the board, you know, then we got off the rails with Monday nights at the Ale House. But, you know, like the tones were like right on. You know what I mean? And like you had all the love for all that kind of style.
I did.
You know what I mean? Whether it be, you know, Almond Brothers, like in the case of, like you say, like you're playing with like Chad, who, you know, was a drummer in Breaking Benjamin for many years. Aaron, who is currently the bass player of Breaking Benjamin, still, right?
Yes, he is.
And, you know, like all playing this little bar on on Monday nights in Wilkes-Barre that only got closed because the Susquehanna flooded its friggin' banks and took it out.
Yes.
Right? In whatever year that was.
Right.
I can't remember.
forget what year it was, yeah.
But anyway, so, you know, that was, you know, and AJ ran that whole thing.
Yep.
And, but, you know, I was always really impressed with, like, I was like, wow, you know, that's like right on. Right. You know, and just having that vocabulary to know what to do for all these styles, you know, because once again, most of these people just stay in their lane.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't have a broad lane.
Right.
You know, where they can say, okay, today I want you to play like Jimi Hendrix. Tomorrow I want you to play like Lindsey Buckingham.
Sure.
You know what I mean? All right. And Friday I want you to play like Stevie Ray.
Right.
You know, so like, for instance, we'll just talk about that for a second. Like, okay, you got to play a gig of all Stevie Ray's songs. Like, what do you do? You know?
Well, I mean, it starts with like, okay, so it was like, we'll split the night. We'll do a Stevie Ray, we'll do a Stevie set and we'll do a Jimmy set.
Yeah.
I do stay true to a Stratocaster, you know, in homage, you know.
And both of those guys were Strats.
And I normally don't play Strats. I play them in the studio, obviously, but I don't play them live. So the first things first is like the amplifier choices is very important. Mm-hmm. Now it is very difficult to switch your brain mid-set because we'll take a little break and we'll do Stevie first.
So Stevie's playing a twin reverb
or
super.
I'm using like a super, you know, it's cleaner.
Yeah.
And it's much more, it's less notey and more aggressive. I have
less
this
notey but more aggressive at the same time.
Absolutely, like aggressive. And then on that set break, I do change amplifiers. I do go Marshall.
Yeah,
you know,
for
Jimmy. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to collect all this shit over the years.
Sure.
And, I mean, and then then you get into the fuzzes and you get into the notes that are, things become more fuzzed out and psychedelic, and it's Texas verse. And what's funny is like I know guys that are much better than that almost in doing those styles. Like I was never one to sit down and learn anything note for note. I mean, obviously your stuff was different, and like when I do in a band thing, but like
our band didn't learn it.
So it worked out perfect.
Worked out fine. We wouldn't have known if you had.
I think every musician hears a song differently.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's certain things. I mean, even you and me, if we say, okay, learn this song to play acoustically, you're going to pick out different parts that I'm going to pick out that you think are more important than I think are more important. Or you're going to sing. So like, that's what makes it unique and beautiful too, which is super cool. But like, I'm fortunate enough where the stuff that I pick out works, you know, and I feel like that's
the essence of it.
You got to get the essence of it, because I mean, tone is definitely very important. And yeah, guitar, you know, I'm blessed to own a lot of guitars, and you know, I bought them when I was young and didn't have bills, and I'm glad I got them when I got them before I had to buy wheelbarrows and weed whackers and things.
Right on. Before you had to buy round molding.
Exactly. As a new homeowner, you know, not too many guitars being bought, but again, like back to what Chad said, it was like if I had the same amp, a Telecaster, and a Tube Screamer, it's the feel.
Sure.
It's the feel. Now, you know, I also, you know, growing up, people now, I'm in the blues rock category, and everything needs to be categorized. But I've been a fan of what we will call power pop my entire life, whether that be Bryan Adams. Sure. I mean, whether my love. I was a huge Goo Goo Dolls fan.
Sure.
Which goes back to Johnny Resnick channeling Paul Westerberg.
Yeah.
So like that route of music for me, like I love. Yeah, I play solos and do that whole thing in the Stevie and Jimmy route, but like for me, it's like powerful chords with a capo is like as satisfying for me.
Sure.
Which made the Badleys, and I also rehearse the shit out of stuff.
Yeah.
Because my big thing is like when I hit the stage, I don't have as much fun if I'm struggling.
Sure.
I don't have as much fun. I mean, there was years where Gwendolyn was like the thorn in my side. Still probably is.
The El Guapo of Badley songs.
And I would try
even though it sounds simple.
I would try to and I would have notes taped to the ground with gaffer's tape and stuff, and then I would like try to follow the notes, and then I would like lose myself in the notes, and I was like, oh, this is terrible. So I was like, I'm just gonna learn. I just gotta learn it. What's strange, and I think we've talked about this before, like if I learn songs from notes, I'm always a slave to those notes.
Yeah.
It's hard to break out of it.
Well, yeah, I do that. I'm guilty of it. Not with the Badleys.
No.
I know that. I know that stuff. But
I almost do it out of pure like, because like when I get on stage, I don't want to think.
Right.
I just want to be like the best shows that I play. I get off stage and I'm like, what just happened?
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know what happened. And sometimes I'll catch myself thinking during shows, and I don't want to think. It's literally meditation for me. And the shows that I can play where I'm totally present are my favorite. There's nothing better.
Sure.
Nothing better. And to be present, it's like, so if having the privilege to play with the Badleys all those years, like I was like, I'm going to dive in, because you have to kind of become that.
Sure.
Because if not, you're not doing the material justice. You're limping along, like, and my love for that style of just, I just love, that's why I love Oasis so much, like, because it's rock and roll, but it's just chords. There's no, the soul. It's just big chords. There's a band I've been listening to called Turnstile.
Yeah, I don't know them.
And it's just heavy chords and beautiful melodies, and it's like they come out of the hardcore scene, so it's a different thing. I'll give you some stuff to check out, but cool. I think like chords are as important. I would rather. I'm known as a lead guitar player, but I almost get equal, if not more, satisfaction as being a rhythm player.
Sure.
I think a good rhythm guitar player is not as easy to find as someone who could shred, or like a good rhythm guitar player. My love of Keith Richards, there's a magic to it.
I only ever saw The Who once.
Yeah.
And I like just watching Pete Townsen do his thing.
Right.
Like in basically a trio.
Right.
Like
exactly.
Got a singer up front, but it's a trio.
Yes.
And like, it was something.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of excitement coming off of that 70-year-old guy, which is now 80.
Right.
But like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a thing.
It's cool, man.
It's super cool.
The older I get.
And I think people just reduce it down to 2 or 3 songs and,
sure,
whatever their perception of what that is.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's like, like, I think musicians that, like, I think the next level is like, okay, well, you want to be able to play, you want to be able to be a professional, you want to be able to do the gig, you want to be able to have the skills and the vocabulary and everything to do all this stuff. But then at the end of that, when all that's done, you want to sort of own a sound. Like if you have a sound and a sort of approach that's your own and is instantly recognizable.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like a Keith Richards or a Pete Townsen. Like that's kind of the top of the mountain.
I mean, it's funny you went
And
there.
it doesn't have to be difficult.
No.
John Fogerty, once again, I've mentioned him in other podcasts. Yeah.
You got to, and that's what's funny is that having like a session player, and there's, I feel bad for anybody playing guitar now because you see on Instagram, I mean, that's a whole different conversation of having to shut out everything, because if you just keep comparing yourself to what's going on, there's people that can play guitar around me, you.
Yeah, all of us.
There's stuff out there now.
Some of them are faking it too.
Some of them I've heard. I have heard this.
Yeah.
I have heard Rick Beato has written some stuff about that as well. Like,
sure.
But a session player is supposed to be non-recognizable.
Yeah.
So what's crazy is like I like to think that if I plug into an amplifier right now, like I think I play a certain way where people know it's me.
Sure.
And that is like a Slash thing. That is a Jimmy Page thing. Having that personality in your playing, it does not correlate with being a great player either.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, I mean, I'm trying to think of like you don't have to be an Eddie Van Halen to have a personality style.
No.
And I think it's more important to have that personality.
I think so too.
Now, I guess I'm able to...
David Gilmour
would
be a big one.
Yeah. I mean, Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm trying to think of guys that are not even like that. I mean, a James Hetfield.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? It's just on my, like, I know, it's him. Like,
yeah,
that is what makes, I feel like, a guitar hero.
Sure.
And it's not about being the best. It's about being the best at what you do.
Yeah, being the best you.
Yeah, like I don't learn things on purpose sometimes because I don't want them in my toolbox. I don't want to know how to sweep. Because you know what's going to happen? I'm going to sweep during Fear of Falling. Nobody wants this. I don't want it. Like, I don't want that. We go back to him all the time. It's like, I think Mike Campbell is like,
yeah.
I mean, there's a 7-year-old guitar player on YouTube right now that could run circles around him technically.
Technically, yeah.
But like, you listen to solos for those songs and it's perfect.
My two top guys in that world, like, and I was talking to a couple on Sunday that were, they listened to my podcast.
Cool.
And Casey and Brian, and they and then we were talking about guitar players and everything. They're like fans of all these groups.
Yeah.
And we were saying, I said, my top two guys are Mike Campbell and George Harrison.
Yeah.
Not the greatest players.
No.
You know what I mean, to me, but it's like I can sing you right now, 10 George Harrison or Mike Campbell licks. Like signatures.
Right.
That are like etched into American worldwide culture.
Yes.
Copied and borrowed
daily
1,000 times. Whatever sweeping guitarist or whatever crazy skilled guy doesn't have that at all. And to tell these stories and like just this really basic storytelling ability, and if you're a musician, it's the same thing. It's like it's ability to take I have all these skills and distill them down.
Yeah.
To like, and that's what you're really good at. Like I could say, okay, well, all right, what do you do if you want to sound like Jimi Hendrix? Okay, well, I got to get a Marshall, I got to get a Strat, I got to get a fuzz face.
And it's about like knowing what to play and knowing what not to play.
And like how much drive and how much aggressiveness I'm putting into the amp. Stevie Ray Vaughan, same one. Okay, maybe I have a Fender Twin or I have a...
Right. Super or
I have a Super. Right. I keep saying Twin.
It's clean.
I have a Super. It's cleaner. I got a Strat. I got an 808. Mm-hmm. I got like things like that, and I got like these technical things that can bring me to him. Okay, well if I got to play Lindsey Buckingham,
right? Which is a totally different world for me. Like if you would have told me, like growing up, my interest in Fleetwood Mac was like zero because it wasn't a guitar band. I listened to guitar bands. I wanted to listen to, guitar music. And then I go and I dive into this stuff, and I'm like, this is great. It's crazy. It's like it's hard. It's hard. And then what's great is like when you do learn these catalogs, then you start to learn that a lot of it's the same. You know what I mean? Like I write a certain way, like Electric Gentleman songs. Once you kind of find out what I do, you could kind of crack the code. You could crack the Badleys code. Sure. You know what I mean? You're not doing that without a capo. You're not doing it like with...
You know like in our case, why the capo thing happened is because like I wrote a lot of things.
Yes.
And my voice is a step lower than Pete's.
Pete's. So then, okay.
So like, awesome. Like I write a song in G, it's got to be transposed up.
Totally.
Because his voice has another step on me.
And that's another thing you learn as like time goes by, that like you could change keys of song. You know, you hear people blowing their voice out trying to sing a song. It's like, it doesn't have to be that way. Change the key. Be comfortable.
Do your own thing.
You know, how many 80s vocalists do you see now that are struggling because like they sang up here in 1980.
No, they cannot.
And now, but like guys like Springsteen or guys like Petty can do it till the day they die because it's just not, so it's like
you're like a freak like McCartney or something that just can still do it.
Yeah, that could just still do it. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that are still that can still do it. But again, what makes me wonder is like, so they were always working on 80% of their ability though. Yeah. You know, our good friend Aaron,
I was going to say that. I was just about to say that.
Dude, he said it to me when I was a kid, when I was like a young kid. He's like, don't ever, 100% is not where you want to be, man. Like,
right.
80%, like 80, 85. Like, and it's true because you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out your voice. You're going to burn out your ability. You're going to burn out.
Yeah. You want to be like hanging around that 80% of your ability.
Yeah, man. Like those are the things.
You don't want to be struggling. You don't want to be thinking.
No.
You want it to be effortless.
Exactly.
You're just like second nature.
And that's when performing moves into the picture.
Sure.
Because, and there's nothing wrong with dudes that could sweep. Listen, we're just gels. Sure. We're just, and it's, everything could be musical, and then there's such great players out there. But man, if anything, like the younger generation is like, just immediately stop comparing yourself to anybody and just do what you love. Because I'll fall into it, scrolling through Instagram, and just like, oh my fuck, man, like I'm not even close to any of these guys.
These guys, yeah.
These Nashville session guys, like it. But again, it's like, if anything, write songs, keep writing songs, and get better at that, because that's
going to be the most personal thing. That's going to be the thing that separates you from everybody else.
Exactly.
I find that, I agree with what you're saying. I agree.
Yeah. That's the thing. You and me have always kind of been, and that's why we've been great friends for so many years. It's like we get that your intention needs to be true.
Sure.
If those staggering numbers of how many songs are released on Spotify a day and stuff. There's two options. You could say, well, there's 1 million songs a day again, so I'm not going to release the songs.
Yeah.
Or you're going to say, oh, I'm just going to release the song. It's like,
sure.
Why are you doing this?
Sure.
I'm doing it because I don't know anything else, and it's my existence. I don't know. I'm surprised I'm able to talk like this to you without a guitar in my hands.
Sure.
If you gave me a guitar, I would probably
talk more.
You.
Yeah.
It's and the singing thing was forced upon. It was like it was so. Had to be done. Like back to like my mom saying, like I used to get so red and so nervous singing in front of people. It was terrible. Still, sometimes it is.
Sure.
Yeah. But your intention needs to be true, and you have to have good tone.
Yeah. And it's style.
Those two things. And
Well, I mean, that's what I was saying is like, like there's like a vocabulary to it. Like you could, like, once again, we just talked about Hendrix. We talked about Stevie Ray.
Yeah.
We talked about Lindsey Buckingham. We talked about, another one I would mention would be like Billy Gibbons.
Totally.
Like, you got to know your history.
You got to know your history.
You got to know your history. You know where it comes from. And
never stop learning that.
No, and it's just you're just being a student of it. And another thing, like to go off in another direction, like anybody that wants to do this, like I'm always talking about, like the musical side and all these things that like, just kind of having this swath and being curious and, Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, all these things have something to teach you.
Yeah.
Like all these styles and all these ways of doing things. But on another topic that I did not cover in the last episode is like, you're very good. This is a left turn.
I'm ready.
But you're very good at like, kind of like the marketing side of what you do. Like okay, if you want to do this for a living,
yes.
Like you're like, and I think like the main thing I think about it, like with you, is that's very good is that you're very consistent with it. Like you do it like several times a week, every week.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like just kind of like putting word out there and letting people know about what you do. And like, and it's not like back in the day, like when I started, it was different than that. You didn't have to do that.
Right.
The word content didn't exist.
I mean, when I started, I would print up flyers.
Yeah.
I was still on the tail end of that. And we would go.
Oh, really?
We would go post, and I mean, I was still on the tail, those early Lemon Jelly gigs, we would put them up in the high school, put them up in the school. So, I mean, I think it started there. And what's so funny is like, I mean, thank you. Unfortunately, it's a necessity. And if you're not doing it, I mean, it's like if a tree falls in a forest, like,
Sure.
You have to, but at the end of the day, not because you want your algorithm and people to see this shit, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you believe in what you're doing, you want as many people to hear that.
Sure.
I'm proud of this new record we have coming out. I want as many people to hear it. And the only way that's going to do that is by trying to bring attention to it. That's the only, it's no other reason for that. It's not a monetary reason. It's not a popularity reason. It's not, it sucks. It sucks. I mean, I wish I had a Scarlett to do my, you know what I mean? And if I might.
She'll do it.
I might. Scarlett, I'm calling you. But it's, and what's funny in true me fashion, where I am constantly climbing this mountain to get to the next thing, is I don't think I'm good enough at it. You know what I mean? Because you see people, but again, it's a full-time job.
That is.
I mean, a major label person has a guy that's doing that for their artist that is getting paid probably more than we're making just to be a social media manager.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, it's you have to spend a lot of time doing it. I mean, I've gotten pretty quick at it. I've gotten like, you just, if you're going to,
you do a lot of it.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, fortunately, now like my manager, Steve, takes some of it.
Sure, he does a little bit of that.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, I just want to concentrate on the music is the real goal. But you have to, some days I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, but there's like, I don't know. In your case, I don't know who's doing it,
right?
But it's consistent,
right? And it's 95%.
Yeah.
Me on my personal page, the band page is something different, but like, it's just because I know that it has to be that way.
Like, and I said, like, there's a great quote from this one book, the book of it's like the Campbell soup can, Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
It's a little paperback. I loved reading. And he always said that, like, the level beyond art is art business.
Yes.
Because like if you're making art, or if you're making art or music or whatever you're making, nobody can get it like, and you can still say that it's valid. Like you can say like, oh, well, people just didn't go down best kept secret or whatever.
Sure.
It takes a whole other level to like actually make that present, or make that, like to take something, okay, here's what's coming out of, like, not to be pretentious, but what's coming out of my soul. I've created this thing. And now I want everybody to know about it.
It takes balls.
It takes balls.
It takes balls, and
what I mean? And it takes balls. And it takes discipline.
It does.
A lot of time.
It really, really does. And what's crazy though is like, I put out a record when I was maybe 15, 16. So I've been like, I think about this often. Like I've been putting a record out like every 2 to 3 years since I was fucking 16 years old.
Yeah.
Like, and now it's like, I've gotten better at it, but like, Amber used to dread the record cycles because I would just be like,
well, you become a zombie while you're in it.
You become a zombie. I said to somebody the other day, there's three stages of it for me. There's the writing and the recording. I call that like the sweatpants. Yeah, the sweatpants thing, right? Then you get out of the sweatpants, then you got to put on the suit, because then it's the business side of things. You want to have a label or to put it out, or you want to have, a publicist, then you got to be the business guy of things. And then it's the leather pants phase,
go out,
and then you go and sell it and have, obviously. And all three of them are equally as, obviously the second one is like, I think the second one is what separates the men from the boys.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of 1 to 3.
Yeah, people want to like make the record, then go out and be a rock star.
Right. There's a lot of 1 to 3, and that stuff that happens, at the tail end of the sweatpants phase into the suit phase is like, that's the stuff that
art business.
But again, you have to.
Yeah.
And again, not to be pretentious, but there is a little bit of pretension to it, because you have to feel that your shit's good enough to want to be heard.
Yeah. Nike said that. He said that last week. He was like, you need an ego. If you don't have one, you have to have some sort of ego to get in front of people.
Have you ever seen a band that doesn't have a leader? They don't. There's like not the who's in charge here?
You have to have an ego to get up in front of people and say, hey, here I am.
There's a confidence level that needs to happen. Now, it's always there. I guess it was there when you met me when I was 21.
It was like, you were a douchebag.
I was. You heard it here, folks. Smash and subscribe. I was.
I'm kidding.
Of course, though. But
I was like,
that talent's got to catch up to that.
Yeah, right.
And more so,
the skill has to.
More so than the skill, the work ethic.
Sure.
The work ethic.
Right on.
I play guitar 20 hours a day sitting on it. Amber doesn't know what a movie sounds like without there being some sort of guitar being played in the background of it. You play acoustic gigs. If I didn't play as many acoustic gigs, I would not be as good of a singer as I am. Force yourself on a room of people eating pizza that didn't know that there was music there that night.
Yep. Right.
Then when people are there to see you, then it's a different story. Yeah. Then it's like, oh, well, this is then.
You're playing a home game at that point.
Yes, you got like those are the skills. And we've talked about this before. How many times are you told, don't play as much in a market, don't play as much as this? The band should like. It's like I make a living doing this.
Me too.
So I have to play the solo acoustic gigs. Of course, if somebody said, if I didn't have to do them, I wouldn't do them.
Yeah.
I would do them on my own terms, because I do like playing solo acoustic.
So do I.
I've been fortunate enough to do that on a larger scale. I opened for REO Speedwagon solo acoustic,
really?
at Penn's Peak. Shout out to Michael Cloran, one of the best.
Nice.
There ain't no band to hide behind.
No.
That's a different learning curve. You just have to play. The only way you get better is by playing. And if it's what I would call a shitty gig 10 years ago is now a gig. And there's something beautiful about all of them.
I saw I didn't see it. I had a friend was telling me about an article, not an article, an interview he heard of like whoever the drummer of Styx is.
Okay.
I forget the guy's name.
Yeah, me and Tommy were talking about him recently, actually.
Yeah,
yes.
Amazing.
Amazing.
And he's like, he was talking about like, okay, I'm like on the road with Styx, and I'm playing, arenas. I don't know, probably some bigger places even. And he said, and I came off the road, and I had a wedding gig that I looked out the window and saw the arena I just played.
Yep.
Yep. And he said, and it felt the same to me.
I saw a similar post where it was a musician talking about he played like an arena type gig. This was all in 1 week. It was like a session, dude. It was like an arena gig, like a graduation party, and then like a club gig. He made no money at the arena gig.
Yeah.
Not a dime.
No, you don't make anything.
He made the most money at the graduation gig. And it was like what we're talking about. It's like just, you play them all.
You play them all.
You play them all.
We played you were on the gig. We played the Bob Seger gig. We played a gig, one of the arena gigs with him up in Connecticut. I came home and played an open jam at a friggin' hibachi restaurant. The next night.
Yes.
You know what I
mean? Exactly.
And like there were pictures of it, with the friggin' guy and the flames coming up, and he's like flipping vegetables and shit.
People's pride,
you know what I mean?
People's pride and ego get in the way of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like
it's the same process.
It's the same thing. Process. And yeah, you could say, it's just money. But there's something to be learned from every gig.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just recently played. Our manager Steve, his buddy, opened a bar. He wanted us to play the grand opening, and it was a corner bar. It was we set up. We haven't played a gig like that in a very long time, so we were like, yeah, let's do it. Absolutely, we'd do anything for Steve. I knew exactly what I had to do to get that place going. And it's Roadhouse. It's Roadhouse Blues. It's Stranglehold. Right. But you don't know that.
You speak VFW.
Yes.
You speak American Legion.
But you don't learn those pathways.
Yeah.
Like back to like playing a gig where you're secondary to the music. It makes the ones that are actual music gigs so much more fulfilling. But it's like, you see a reaction from somebody after you play one song, what route you're going to take the rest of the night.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
it takes one guy.
It just takes one guy. And then all right, he liked that song. Well, then I know what I'm going to play next. And like, those are the things you learn from the shitty gigs or the not as desirable gigs. Listen, not every gig has monitor. I didn't have a monitor for 15 years.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, if my monitors went down tomorrow, we're still going to play that gig.
You're playing it anyway.
We're still going to play that gig.
I'm of that. Like, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't think there's any benefit in sitting home. If you can play, and there are things that suck so much that you can't do them.
So much.
And we've talked about those.
And we've done.
On another podcast, I was talking about that where we were going back and forth. And you had to, some of these.
Oh man,
we were like sharing pictures.
Some of them are brutal, man.
They're brutal,
but you learn which ones are, and then you don't have to do those anymore if it's forward progress, and it all spills in. The shit you're learning, making you a better singer, learning different songs, and then you're adding songs into your set list, so you're learning different songs and you're learning different styles,
right?
And then you're reacting to people, and then you're reacting to people that come up to you after a gig. You don't want to be a fucking weirdo. Like, you have to.
It's reps,
It's reps.
Yeah,
and that's the real gig. Like that's not. There's a lot of bands I met that only just play the good ones, but it's like you become a good band by playing the shady ones.
Yeah, right on. That's why I'm doing this, bro. That's why I'm doing this.
That's it.
This is the deal. So thank you.
Thank you for having
me. We're going to do it. All right, buddy. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks,
this was great.
This podcast was produced by Stone State Entertainment.